as a holistic unit. And so anything that is impacting their health outcomes or their ability to thrive, we work with families to connect them to those resources. And we do this in collaboration. We also have a partnership with our Families Helping Families networks. So it's kind of a relationship of what we refer back and forth so that we make sure that all families are supported effectively and efficiently. And that's pretty much the high points.
Thank you, Patty. We have a hand raised. Are there any questions from council members? No public comment? We do have a public, we have a hand raised. All right. So, for the consent. Go ahead. Oh, go ahead, Nicole.
Ms. Brenda?
Hello. Oh, good afternoon. I wanted to ask Ms. Patty, for the pregnant moms, is the doulas included with that assistance? Thank you.
Hey, we do work to connect families. If that is a support that they're looking for, we connect them to doulas within the community. And the Bureau is in kind of leading work around developing that doula registry. And so there's, on the LDH website, if there's someone that is interested in registering for as a doula with the registry, there is information available there. But when we are contacted by families, if they are looking to be connected to doula services, that is something that we do support them with.
Is there any other public comment?
She raised her hand.
Oh, go ahead.
Yes, I meant to ask Ms. Patty if she could briefly say what a doula is. My concern is when I was pregnant, I was denied a doula, but that was years ago. And I'm glad that that is an option now. Thank you.
So the doula, a doula is a support coach for individuals who are pregnant, and they are experts in childbirth and in supporting families through this period. And so they're a valuable resource. There's been several what's the word I'm looking for? Pilots and demonstration projects that have proven the effectiveness of doula services to pregnant moms and families. So yes, it is a very important resource for families, and they provide education and support and coaching. So yes, a valuable resource to our families.
Thank you. Any other comments? Hearing none, the report requires no action and was placed on file. This is to let our virtual participants know the weather is getting very bad here. And if for some chance the internet goes out, we have to break for 30 minutes. And then after 30 minutes, if we haven't been able to reestablish connection, and if we have a quorum, we can go ahead and continue with our meeting. But just to let you know, just ahead of time. All right. The next item for business is the report of the Office of Aging and Adult Services. The chair recognizes Mindy Richard to present the report.
It'll be Natalie.
Natalie East.
On.
Yes. Good afternoon, y'all. I'm sorry that I'm joining virtually today. I'm having some vision issues, but and the weather is getting pretty gnarly over here. In terms of the report, we just have updates on our current number of recipients for our waiver services and our other home and community-based services, including long-term personal care services and the program of all-inclusive care for the elderly. To highlight, we did have a new PACE center open in Alexandria. I believe they officially opened May 1st and accepted or enrolled their first participants as of June 1st. But they're hitting the ground running. They enrolled about 3 times more participants than they anticipated in that first month of services, which was really good. But they're open, they are operating, they are fully functioning, and they're excited to be in that area to provide a service to that area that wasn't there before. We are using ARPA funds to conduct a market analysis for possible additional PACE sites in Louisiana, but we don't have the results of that yet. So that's kind of in the works. There's some information on our waiver registry, as well as traumatic head and spinal cord injury program update and SPAs. In terms of updates for those, I don't have many updates for those. We did have legislation passed this last session to update the name of the traumatic head and spinal cord injury program to the traumatic brain and spinal cord injury program. So that'll be coming. And then there are some numbers regarding the Adult Protective Services calls in the quarterly, that's a quarterly report there. They are accepting online reports now for allegations of abuse. And so I don't know how that's impacted their numbers. I can ask for next time. I'd be curious to know if they're seeing an increase in reports due to the availability of that online portal. And I can certainly ask about that. And then on the last page, just some additional information on our populations by program, by region, by race, gender, and age group. And that's all that I've got.
Right. Are there any questions from our council members?
Okay, so I have one, under the Medicaid home and community-based services, I see the current recipients, but the waiver registry, the wait list, 10,405 people on the wait list. Like, how are we combating that? Because that's just too old, like, just to state a number of that many people on the waiting list.
Sure. So we're currently focused on waitlist reduction efforts, primarily working with our support coordination agencies and trying to make improvements there. We did, again, in this last legislative session, I'm going to get there, receive funding for an additional 750 waiver slots. But as with all, I think, home and community-based services, there are workforce issues that are limiting what we can do with the population that we serve. So we also try to really even though we have that many people on the wait list, there are currently 5,820 that don't have any services. So a little less than half of them are receiving services, most likely LTPCS, but they're still on the wait list for CCW while they're receiving those LTPCS services.
And how long, because I've asked this question before, years ago, how long are these people on the wait list? And are these still the people that was on the wait list in 2020?
It depends. So we have the wait list is prioritized in terms of our offers. Our offers are prioritized for people who do not currently have services before people who currently have services. So those, for example, who have LTPCS and are still on that CCW wait list could have been waiting for quite some time. I don't have the exact length of time in front of me. And I want to say, though, those without services, the wait time, no, I don't want to tell you a number and be wrong, but it's not quite as long as those who are receiving services through, like I said, LTPCS, for example.
So about on average, a person would be up on the waiting list for maybe about 2.5 years, something like that? Maybe?
I don't think so. I don't think it's that long. If you give me a minute, I will pull it up and I can tell you exactly what it was, probably as of last month for each of the different groups, but I don't have it in front of me. I believe it is less than a year for those without services, or right at a year for those without services. For those who are receiving services, it is much longer.
Okay, so, and then you said this also is because of workforce issues. So is it because you don't have enough people that are mandating these programs, or that filtering through this wait list and this process? Is that what the case is, or is it something else?
It is, well, I think it's a multitude of factors. I think, again, we are seeing that our support coordination agencies and the providers that provide direct support workers to participants are struggling to find and keep workers just across the board. We have waiver slots available. Again, we have another 750 slots that we're going to be able to offer in this coming year. The challenge has been getting those slots offered, and then that time frame from offer to actual certification and to start delivery of services.
And there's not like a concrete timeline that this has to be done by, because I've asked this question multiple times before, and I always get this general answer. What I'm getting right now is, oh, well, we don't really know, or we can't say what the timeline is gonna be, or everybody case is different. You still should have some sort of concrete, all right, well, this is the process. It takes this long to screen these people. So this is how long that this is gonna take. And then we're gonna go into the certification. We've never gotten that answer. I've asked that many of times on this council. Not saying that it's you, because you have other representatives for this particular agency. But this has always been my issue. Always have been my issue with the waiting list, the employment issues I'm guessing that they have, or the direct support care, and then the time that these people are on this waiting list. Just to combat the process, like, if something better has to be done. This is way too many people up on the waiting list, and it's been like this since 2020, since I've been here. This waiting list has actually went up.
Yes.
So I'm just, what are we doing? Because like I brought this up several times about this, combating this whole waiting list thing.
Sure. So I can tell you some things that we're working on. So like I said, we've been working on SCA initiatives to try to improve the process, particularly from waiver offer to certification. So we've been looking at updates to our waiver documents, which take time. But we've also been looking at updates to our own internal policies and procedures to see where we could perhaps, again, streamline things for our providers so that they're able to move through that process more quickly. This year, we are actually actively doing some of the work for or in addition to the support coordination agencies in an effort to get people certified timely. So we have staff that are, doing assessments, that are out there doing the groundwork, doing the legwork to do those IHC assessments and to do plans of care to get people certified. So it's kind of a multi-pronged approach. No one has told me you need to have this wait list cleared by X date. But it is top of mind, I think, for everyone in OAAS.
Yeah, just a suggestion I'm just a council member, that we get some type of timelines upon this. If y'all really working upon things, we require that from the Department of Education. We require that from all of the rest of our agencies about like when they're getting stuff done. It's even with families helping families, they have timelines and deadlines that they have to meet with certain things. So I know that y'all working on it, and I'm pretty sure your efforts are really commendable, but can we at least get some type of timeline of when this is getting done?
And when you say when this is getting done, help me understand what you mean.
Okay, so like you say, you have all of these trainings and all of this stuff and the certifications that people have to go through and the different things that y'all have to do in the process. So you say you're working up on trying to, revamp that so that the process doesn't take as long. So what I'm saying is, during that process, how long are you guys giving yourselves to get this done? Not saying that we're requiring you to get anything done. What is your goal on your timeline of what you plan on getting this stuff done? Oh, it might be frozen.
Yeah, and I will say, so we have certified this year at this point over 700 waiver participants. So that, kind of gives you a sense of how quickly we're moving through the process. I can't remember the exact number, but it's a little over 700 waiver certifications in this last state fiscal year, I should say.
Okay. But that's going to answer my question, but hopefully, we can get an answer to, my question.
Lauren. I don't know if this is not gonna answer your question.
I know.
But just prior to right after they made the determination of prior need, it was first come, first serve.
And they told me that I was gonna have to wait for services to get personal care up to like, they were on like 3 or 4 years. And it was just whoever signed up first got first come, first serve. So now they do need, but at the same time, even staffing the areas that they already have the waiver slots for. They're saying, I mean, you talk to anybody, they can't find the staff to keep the people that are already on the waiting list. And then you open it up more and the agencies are saying, we can't even staff the people that we have. You're letting all these waiver spots open, but still the people are without service. So it's even more frustrating because you're like, okay, you say you can have services, but now I have no staff, so I'm in the same situation. And our, like, it seems like we're all trying to find a solution, but I don't know. We can, so that's just it's a multi-pronged issue, and the legislators just want to keep giving us more spots, but if we don't have people to provide the service, I don't know if anyone wants to speak to that, or if that captures a little bit about the situation.
This is what I want to ask. What's the young lady, what's her name?
Natalie.
Miss Natalie, is y'all doing it as emergency ones, or how, do you got them in groups? How
We
you
do,
doing
we,
this?
we do have some reserved waiver slots. We have 300 reserved waiver slots for expedited waiver slots is what we call them. So those are referrals that we get when someone maxes out typically with LTPCS and they still need additional support. So we are able to expedite that, but I'll tell you, there's a wait list for that now too. All of those expedited slots are filled for those that particular group, that 300 slots, those are filled, and we've got a sub wait list now of 50 or so people waiting for the expedited services. But we do have priority groups, I think is the answer to your question. And those are defined in the waiver document.
So then,
Mr. Phil?
so but you got them in the groups, who needed the most and who needed none less. And then that's how y'all looking at your waiver list.
So we do have priority groups. We have certain priority groups, but beyond those priority groups and outside of those who already have services, it is first come, first served basis. So your spot on the wait list is dependent upon when you called and basically, requested to be added to the registry to the wait list.
So I guess wanna picking up on Cherie's positive comment earlier, I want to make sure that we need to ask hard questions and so forth. But we also need to acknowledge when we hear about things that are moving in the right directions, that would harken us back to forgot the name of it, but the group that's doing the multi-state leadership collaborative, what's it called? For the DSPs. The peer learning collaborative.
They're learning, yeah.
I think at the end of the day, I'm guessing if every one of us were called individually, privately, and said what we really think the solution is, we have to professionalize and pay people to do this very important work. And until we do, it's the situation that Lauren just described of, there's waiver slots, great, and now I can't get any staff to fill them. We know it's because people can make more money doing much other jobs, let's put it like that. And this is a tough job to do if you do it right, correct?
You're caring for somebody that you're not related to.
Right, and so we all know that, and we shouldn't necessarily stop saying it or anything, but I don't, until we start paying people a reasonable wage that you can do this for the rest of your life if you choose it as a career path, we're gonna keep having the turnover that we have. And, it's just the same story. Even when we solve one problem, we still haven't solved that underlying problem. So it's going to take a lot of people. I don't know what workforce can do for us. I don't know what the governor can do. I don't know if we know what the cost of not fixing this problem is. I don't know if we know that, but people die, people have other bad outcomes. They're in the hospital all the time and this and that. And we've got to figure out, how do we demonstrate that to our legislators and executive branch folks to say, we've got to do something about what we're paying people.
And actually, if it's okay with Natalie and Mindy, I did some research, and there is a national group, PHI, and they did a survey in Louisiana is last on everything. We are last on hay. The demographic is deplorable about low-income single mothers, minority in Louisiana, we are 50th on every category. And I just think that, maybe if we appeal to them or the council appeals to them, getting involved in this work group might be something that we can do, at least, instead of complaining about it, is at least try our best to look for solutions. Because we all want the same thing, but we're not getting it.
And what's the name of the?
It's PHI is the acronym, and I can send it out to the town.
Okay.
I'll send it to you, Christy, so you know what to do with it. Yeah.
I guess I want to go back to make sure that I'm convinced, I'm doing this for quite a few years, that the bottom line is we're not paying people. And if our legislators and the people that are making decisions about, the pay that people get, which frankly isn't anybody in this room, if they don't see how much it's costing to not fix this problem, they aren't incentivized to do much about it. But when they find out it costs millions of dollars to not fix the problem, maybe they would look at the math a little differently and say, well, I guess we got to pay more to avoid these other costs. And that would probably take a fairly sophisticated study to do that, an evaluation or whatever. And I don't know how we get that funded, but maybe we can get a resolution or something that could be advocated for. Okay, it's great, we got some little information, but now we need the money to actually do a real true evaluation.
I'm gonna keep it short. And I'm gonna be strong. This is our lives that's sitting around this table. This is not nothing that we say, okay, we need funding. Until they come out the high seat and see what we go through every day to live independent, to see, okay, we need what we need to handle, to live every day. It's easy to say, okay, let's push them to a nursing home. And that's cheaper to push them to the nursing home and then to do this. We need better paying workers. We need better paying people that cares about the work they do. Because if we don't get people that don't care, we got a problem. We give them coins and they live off of coins. You go buy a loaf of bread, you ain't got no more coins to live on. But if you give them money to live on and give them a skill to, hey, you got to qualify to do this job. And not just put somebody in there and say, boom, you got a job. At the end of the day, who gonna take care of us? They need something to come to work for, to live off of, to say, okay, I'm happy to come to work to wipe this man's face, to help him do assistance, what he need to be done, to help this young lady here. But if you give them coins, I gotta go to Walmart to get a better paying job and then to come down. It can't work that way.
Yeah,
We can talk about it all day. Burger King get paid higher than what they giving us.
I absolutely agree with every single thing you said. What I'm trying to say, though, is nobody in this room is going to be able to mandate a doubling of the wage or 50% more of the wage. The only people that can do that, frankly, are, across town in the Capitol building. If they don't understand that it's costing a lot of money to provide really poor services, which then result in bad, expensive outcomes for people. Every time somebody goes to the hospital, if you get an aspirin, it's $50, right? So we've got to figure out a way to demonstrate to the policymakers that if they don't spend money, they're going to keep losing money. And the quality of life of the people, obviously, that's clear, and you very eloquently described it.
So, what you're kind of touching on is maybe we need to do an awareness campaign and make it relevant not only to people with developmental disability, but people are living longer. Those senators sitting there voting, one day they're going to be in my situation.
Absolutely.
Are they going to want to be in a Northrop zone? No. Nobody visiting their relatives, with everyone is visiting. But you don't want to think about that.
I agree with you.
An awareness based on this will be you.
Yeah.
And
So,
you know,
so somebody very wise taught me a long time ago that, our legislators and executives folks, they're good people. They want everything for everyone, right? But at the end of the day, they have this pot of money and they got to divvy it up 18,000 ways. If you can tell me that our budget, our taxes, whatever will go further if I spend some money
exactly.
and not pay these other bills, they are being well inclined to go that way. You give them an emotional story, they may agree with you 100% and still go, well, what can I do about it? I only have this much money to spend. So I'm just saying, basically a cost benefit analysis is what's required. And it's not something that I can do. I don't know if anybody in this room has that kind of skill set, but there are companies, there are universities, there are people that can do those kind of studies.
Could the council, is that something that we could do?
No, it's too expensive.
You can't
I don't think
do a
council
contract?
budget would do it. It's a big lift.
Vivian?
So last year we were going to work on the DSW rate increase, and then we changed it. We let people convince us to do the night rate instead. I'm just saying this isn't the first time we're discussing this.
Sure is. I'm out for 4 years.
Any other public comment?
And I'll just say this, thank you for, talking about the bigger picture issues that we're facing in the state and nationwide, to be honest. It's not just here in Louisiana. But I also want to say, don't ever hesitate to hold us accountable or ask us tough questions or hold our feet to the fire. That's your job. And it's our job to be able to answer those tough questions. So I don't want anyone to feel like they can't question us or can't express frustration. You absolutely can. And, again, we absolutely want to be held accountable and want to make sure that we are providing you with the information that you need and that we are moving in the direction in which we need to for our participants and for the state. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Natalie.
Thank you.
Hearing no other comments? Is her hand up? Oh, go ahead, Jill.
That's okay.
Oh, she's still muted.
You muted, Jill.
Y'all might lose me because it's raining pretty bad, and if y'all just saw me make face like there was thunder and I screamed like bloody murder. So y'all might lose me.
Okay, thank you. Any other public comment? All right, hearing none, the report requires no action, we place on file. The next item of business is the report of the Department of Education. The chair recognizes Meredith Jordan for her report.
Perfect. So I'll go through a couple of things. We've been extremely busy post legislative session, and we talked about this a lot yesterday in our education committee. Quite a few legislative bills are going to impact special education and several of our policies. So that's kind of been our focus, is to get those legislative responsive policy updates done very quickly. So SEEP is going to meet on July 31st, and that is going to be, it'll be a packed agenda, and that will be one of our main focus areas, is going through those policy updates in response to legislation. The only legislative items that we are not addressing just yet are the two dyslexia related legislative items that will take quite a bit of our team's work moving forward. And they're just going to take us a little bit more time in terms of putting together the payment schedules. One of them requires reimbursements for families and for parents and for school systems who want additional dyslexia testing after an at-risk screening. So there's a little bit more detail and work rather than some pretty quick, straightforward bulletin updates. So those will come a little bit later, but that will be our focus for SEEP in July, are those legislative policy updates. And we'll also have a response item for the most recent audit on monitoring. The second piece here, I know we talked about this survey, but I wanted to bring it back because we're nearing the close of that survey. On July 31st is our parent involvement and input survey. So we have a specific set of school systems that you'll see on here that we will report those results on to the U.S. Department of Education around a very specific parent involvement indicator. However, the survey is also open to all parents, but that will close July 31st. And we've been doing a lot of outreach to these particular school systems, reminding them and making sure, because it is a secure survey, parents do in these particular LEAs, they do have to have a code to access the survey. And so we've been doing a lot of outreach with these LEAs to say, hey, here's your response rate. We want to see these response rates go up. Please make sure your families have access to the survey. And please send out, use social media, use different communication structures to get it out to families. The next piece that I wanted to update, we are in the process. So at this time of year, end of year, is a lot of data collection that we're doing and a lot of collections that we are required to gather different documents from our LEAs. One of those that I know this council and some of our stakeholders have been really interested in are those local special education advisory council reports, which we did see some legislation that requires certain requirements. That'll be part of our policy update and putting that in. So we saw a little bit of legislation around local special education advisory councils this year as well. We are collecting these reports still. I am very insistent and adamant to make sure I do the outreach on this myself. I do have team members that help, but as we get to, all right, here's the due date and I don't have it, they get an email from me. And so I will say I've got so far more than we have ever gotten. Sometimes it's, you know, we have nearly 200 LEAs between our school systems, between charters. And so it is a lot to collect a lot of these things, which this is one collection that we're under, but I know it's one that you guys are really interested in. So we're doing additional outreach to try to get all of those reports And all of those links, we go in, we click on everyone. And if I don't see a report, I'm reaching out. So you sent me a link and I don't see your report. And we're reaching out and following up with that too. So it's also a verification piece in there as well. So making sure that just because you sent me a link, I'm going to look for the 23-24 report of your council and what you all did, what you accomplished. And so we're gonna release this in September, the final collection, just as we did last year. And I think I shared it with this group too. So once I release that document, it'll have every LEA and it'll have a link to their report so that interested parents, stakeholders can go to whatever parish, whatever LEA, whatever charter, and find a list and a report on the actions. So I'll bring that back to you all. But I did link here where it will be posted. We already have the one posted for last year. And it's very transparent. If we didn't get a report, it's blank for that particular LEA. The next piece, you all know we had our Teacher Leaders Summit in May. We've had a lot of professional development opportunities happening over the summer. We do a literacy regional tour. We've got some ELA and social studies trainings coming up. Our team is going to be offering some support for pupil appraisal in order to facilitate that collaboration with pupil appraisal and assessment teams. We added a pupil appraisal expert. I have ed diagnosticians, I have speech, but I added a pupil appraisal person on my team who has that coordination background as well. So she's going to lead and put together this institute. It'll be a one-day institute for pupil appraisal staff from across the state to come in. And we're going to talk about data, how to use data to make impactful changes for students and make really great intervention recommendations. We'll talk some with pupil appraisal about dispute resolution. What are the things that we hear from parents? What are some of the main complaints that we receive around evaluation requests in that process? And so that we can try to help build capacity and help our people. So I think making those connections sometimes. So we spend a lot of time supporting school systems, teams, staff, educators, now pupil appraisal staff, but also helping them connect. What do we also hear from parents that you all need to know that you may need to be addressing in your school system, right? So we'll talk a little bit about that. What are some of the top complaints that we get around evaluation processes? Any updates, bulletin updates, legislative updates that will impact pupil appraisal teams that they need to be aware of. We'll include those types of topics as well. So we're pretty excited to kick that support off. We're also starting, we'll be launching our cohort 5 for our special education fellows. I know we have teachers around this table. We've had special educators around this table, and a lot of you have been interested in that. And so I'll link to our application there. And we're going to be recognizing our cohort 4 completers also at August Bessie. We had about 22 individuals complete this year-long process. The past year, it was the most that we've ever had. So really building and connecting with leaders who are interested in being special education administrators and directors, so that when we see folks in that workforce retiring, that there are people who are connected, are being supported by the department, supported around laws, around policy, and how to be and lead this work in our state. So we have a group of people who are great candidates for to step in some of those roles across our state if they come open. We have extended access to some foundational literacy modules. So several years ago, there was legislation passed that required science of reading training for any educator K through 3. So one of the things that we often hear is, well, Meredith, we sometimes have students with disabilities who have learning challenges around reading in middle school, early high school. And so we launched some specific modules for those middle school grades and really targeted our special educators who support reading and reading interventionists. So we're extending those modules. We have some school systems who, now this is a local decision, but they may be offering incentives or paid incentives for their special educators, for literacy specialists to access this coursework. Because of course it is in addition to their job responsibilities and additional training. So you'll see what those modules are. And we've been communicating that regularly to our SPED directors that these are expended, that they're still available because they are extensive. It does take, I mean, each module takes hours to complete. They're interactive, they're in depth, they have checkpoints, they may be watching videos at certain points. So they are interactive. They're kind of not just sort of sit and get. You have to watch a video, interact with the training, that kind of thing. So they do take time. It would have to be something that an educator was doing either during a professional learning experience after school, maybe this summer. And so they're pretty expensive. Wanted to give at least one dyslexia, a couple of dyslexia updates. So we had Act 266 of the 2023 session that required all kindergarten students to be screened. So this past year was the first year that we had started all kindergarten students being screened for dyslexia. So we launched that. The department provided the Shaywitz dyslexia screen. We used legislative funding that was dedicated for that activity. We had training that we provided, and those students were to be screened prior to the end of the school year. If students come back with an at-risk screening, so not saying they have dyslexia, right? You need multiple assessments, multiple data points. But if this particular screening comes back with at-risk, there is a requirement by law that parents are notified within 30 days of that result. So any parent at this point, hopefully he would have already been notified because that screening should have happened before the end of the school year. And of course, like I said, there were some new updates, legislative updates this past session that we will have to address next steps with dyslexia. We are, because this is a real growing interest, even nationally, of course, in our state, I think we have had dyslexia legislation for the past couple of years in our state. Last year, we launched a cohort for a dyslexia practitioner pathway of training. We already have certifications for dyslexia practitioners and therapists in our state available through the department. If you meet certain coursework requirements, you can get that on your Louisiana teaching certificate. And so these cohorts, we launched those in an effort to, we have a lot of science of reading training that's happening to grab some of those teachers that are really experts in science of reading in the area of supporting students who struggle to read and take them to the next step, and grab those experts and say, hey, are you interested in really deepening your knowledge of dyslexia and how to support those students? So we had a cohort of 25 last year, and I worked with our literacy team to fund it with some state literacy funding. This was not funded through IDEA, so just to kind of tell you guys how I also reach out to other teams in the department to help support our work around some of our students with disabilities as well. And our second cohort this year will also be funded with some of that same literacy funding. So, and we're getting a lot of interest. We had, I would say we had more than 50, maybe even closer to 100 applicants. But our cohorts are only taking 25 just based on the funding availability and this literacy funding and what we could finance at the time in terms of the cohort. So, and you'll see kind of how extensive this is. So 140 hours of coursework, 60 practicum hours where they're actually having to support students with dyslexia and report back to their instructor. So it's not something that you want to sign up for if you're not extremely committed. But our thought is, and when we choose the cohort, we are looking at trying to, because we'll have a school system that'll send us like 20 names from one school system. But what we want is regional representation within these cohorts, so that we're trying to train these folks across the state. and be fair, right? So that's just kind of there's an inaugural dyslexia summit that the Louisiana Academic Language Therapy Association, we have the Center for Literacy and Learning in Louisiana. So this is really ramping up in our state. This is the first, to my knowledge, of a Louisiana State Dyslexia Summit. It is not being funded by LDOE, but wanted to just kind of put that out there as something that's kind of growing in interest here. And that'll happen in October. And so any dyslexia practitioner, therapist, any educators, literacy interventionists, it would be great for school counselors who are interested in dyslexia, 504 supports, special educators, ed diagnosticians, speech language pathologists, all of those folks would be folks who would be potentially interested in going to this dyslexia summit. And we'll see kind of what is that interest. You'll see the registration is open. The cost is $299. So again, not something funded by the department, but something that I know, with a lot of our Louisiana dyslexia organizations very involved in and collaborating on. Also, last thing, we will be hosting regional collaboratives across the state. So again, I know I've talked with you guys about this. Sometimes we miss supporting certain areas because a lot of times we're holding things and hosting things here in Baton Rouge. And it is very hard. It's a long drive for our North Louisiana friends to get down here. So trying to be a bit more respectful and going to school systems to support, or at least to regions, to be closer and more accessible. And so that we don't pull them out of their schools and school systems for days on end when we have supports or trainings we need to do as a department. But we're going to host some regional collaborations in which special education directors from every school system will be required to attend alongside their superintendents, alongside their chief academic officers. That's been something that we have been very vocal about as an agency around special education, is bringing all of these folks together and not siloing student with disability support. So our instructional coherence pathway, we're really focusing on inclusive practices for our children with disabilities and our students with disabilities, making sure they have access to inclusive, high quality teaching and learning. And so I'm really excited about this, and I'm really excited about having those special education leaders right alongside their superintendents and CAOs who also need that learning and need that support, and to kind of show and model that cohesion that we want to see in our school systems around making sure we're providing the best outcomes and the best learning for our kids with disabilities. So those are just a couple of things that we have going on and we'll be doing moving forward. So I'm happy to take any questions.
I know usually, SEEP usually meets on a Wednesday, but in November it's on a Tuesday. Is that correct?
Let me double check that, Christy. Let me double check it. It could be a room issue.
I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, and we also normally meet in June, but we had to move, of course, because of June 19th holiday this year. Our meeting
That's what I was wondering before I made sure.
Let me check on November, right?
Okay.
So do we have any test results for the kindergartners that were tested? Like, what was the total number tested? How many came back positive or at risk?
So the legislation doesn't require us to collect those at-risk indicators. So I don't have numbers on how many kids came back at risk. What we do collect is every December, we collect and report to the legislature the number of students. So the law requires us to identify once a year the number of students identified with dyslexia who have an IEP or a 504. But this particular at-risk screening, we're not required to collect that information. So a screening result.
So who identifies them as having dyslexia?
So that will go through either your SBLC team or that IEP team. Now remember, dyslexia falls under specific learning disability, for IDEA purposes, right? You can also have a medical diagnosis of dyslexia. Yes.
Why are they screening the kids at kindergarten? I mean, like, a lot of these kids don't know how to identify things, so how can you like really actively screen them in kindergarten for dyslexia?
That's been a huge discussion right now because the law tells us to.
Oh, okay.
The law specifically says to be screened in by the end of kindergarten.
They passed this law, when did they pass this law?
2022, and then we got the funding last year in 2023. To fund
Okay,
us.
so let's say that I'm a parent and I feel like my child needs to be screened for dyslexia that's not in kindergarten, maybe they're in middle school or
You
something like
can
that.
still request that your school screen.
How long does it take them from the time that you request to actually do the screening and then get back with you? How long is that supposed to take?
It should be a reasonable, there's no timeline.
Should be
to
over 2
find
years?
anywhere. No, absolutely not.
Yeah, because see, that's the thing I'm dealing with my own son, where we
Right.
asked to be screened for dyslexia. We put it through the IEP team. They went through they gave me a roundabout answer into why they still haven't did the screening yet. If he passed so many tests and he could read and all this other stuff, he don't get to qualify for the screening, and then he's still having issues. So it's like it took them 2 years just to tell me that.
No, it should not take 2 years.
I'm just
to
telling you,
get
a real life
screening.
parent that actually
No,
went
I
through the actual screening process of the dyslexia and all that before, like after kindergarten and after they took done. This is how long it took them with me, and I'm in Terrebonne Parish.
Yeah. Gotcha.
So I don't know if any other parents are facing what I'm facing with the dyslexia, but that's definitely concerning to me how long it took.
Yeah. It shouldn't. And the Shaywitz dyslexia screener takes less than 5 minutes to it.
It's like, I was specifically told, like, when we went through the IEP, that it was gonna take at least a year and a half because they had a waiting list. And I'm like, just for screening?
Yeah.
Yeah, literally, and they did not do it until last year, well, the beginning of, well, I say last year, but 2023, that beginning of that school year. That's when it actually got done, and I requested it in 2021.
Yeah. IDEA's sort of typical language is within a reasonable time.
Cause I know, like, I must have been one of the ones that just fall through like cracks or something like that. So I know if I experienced this, some other parents have experienced the same thing that I am experiencing as we currently speak.
Yeah.
So.
And I would really encourage parents or families that have experienced that to reach out to our special education ombudsman and let us help connect the parent with the school district and kind of navigate that disagreement, right? And let us help move that a little bit if we can.
And that's the ombudsman that you guys
Yes.
hired previously, right? That lady.
Yes.
And this is for public schools only? Or this is
Yeah.
mandatory and private as well?
No, it's for
Public schools only.
Any public comments?
Yes, Ms. Brenda Kosey has her hand raised.
Yes, Ms. Brenda?
Good afternoon. Should I read all three of the questions?
Should you read all three of her questions?
Yes, go ahead. Start with one at a time.
Okay, wait, let me get to it. How to access the virtual options. Thank you for the report for seat meeting on 7/31 to give public comment on the legislative portion.
Yeah, Ms. Kosey, we have a live stream link that appears on our SEEP agendas that you can use. So those will post publicly. The next one will post on Wednesday. So they're usually posted a week ahead of time, our agendas, and that live stream link is right on that public agenda, Ms. Kosei.
You mean on the Bessie website?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Second question, how many SPED Fellows cohort 4? You said it was the largest. How many of them being recognized in August by Bessie?
We have about 22.
Thank you for continuing that and
Sure.
funding. And with the PASI 24, is there virtual options for that one-day institute? And the report says that school systems are encouraged to send 2 attendees. Is at least one pupil appraisal representative required to attend training? Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Good question, Ms. Kosei. Right now, for our People Appraisal Summit, we're going to do full in-person. And they could send whatever 2 pupil appraisal staff they wanted. So we want both of those people to be a pupil appraisal staff member. So it could be a diagnostician, could be a school psychologist, anybody who would be on that pupil appraisal team. But yes, definitely a pupil appraisal person.
Any other public comments? Hearing none, the report requires no action and will be placed on file. Thank you, Ms. Meredith. The next item of business is the report of the Governor's Office of Elderly Affairs. The chair recognizes Sherry Crane for the report.
Good afternoon, everybody. My report is just the same basic report, just updating some of the statistical data. So I'm really just going to kind of go over some high points of where GOEA is at the moment. Just keep in mind that these numbers are not as of June 30th because we don't have that data completed yet. This is actually as of the end of March. So if you kind of go down to the bottom where I start talking about, you know, just our continuation work with MDEC when it comes to response and recovery, support functions during disasters, that's still ongoing, will be for a good while, which is a good thing. And then just want to touch bases on what we have accomplished during the regular 2024 legislative session. I know over the last year, I've reported about APS, our Elderly Protective Services Unit, which had an audit, came up with some findings. In addressing those audits, we've been preaching that our Elderly Protective Service Unit has been understaffed. The caseload has been extremely higher compared to other states throughout the country. So it was very good news during the session. We were allocated 16 additional positions for our EPS unit. So that will alleviate that high caseload number now. So it'll take a while to feel those effects, but we are in the process of doing the job descriptions for those positions because they are going to be strategically placed throughout the state. Sorry about that. And also we will be including some of those to be actually supervisors over regional areas. So it'll take a little while to feel the effects of getting a lower case load. However, we are working on that now. During May, we celebrated Older Americans Month. For some of you who don't know the history, Older Americans Act was done in 1965. Congress passed it to help the elderly as well as other, you know, whether they're disabled or whatever, to be stay in their community, live in their home longer, and still get the services that they need, whether it, you know, includes family caregivers, congregate meals, home delivered meals, you know, preventive health services, personal and home care services, transportation, legal assistance, all of those services, as well as provides the ombudsman service. Some of you may know with the Older Americans Act, that is kind of what we are. We are the State Union on Aging, and that is what we follow. That is our guide on providing services to the community. It was done in 1965. It was reauthorized a couple of times. Since 1988, there has been no major change to that Older Americans Act until February of 2024. February 2024, they did a final rule and they revised the whole American Act. So now our agency has to take our internal GOEA policy and procedure manual, rewrite it to mimic the changes, implement it to our AAAs, which is our area agency on aging. We have 64, one in each parish. So we have until October of 2025 to be in compliance with those changes. It's going to take a lot of work. I am spearheading that project since I am the manager of compliance and planning. So that is going on, as well as everything else that we have with getting the 16 additional positions. Also, we were invited by ACL, which is the Administrative Community Living, to submit a proposal for the USA Aging Conference. And we submitted the proposal based on how Louisiana handles disasters. Of course, we all know our most disaster that we get here is hurricanes. So we submitted a proposal. I wrote it up with some help from one of my staff members. And we actually submitted the proposal and we were asked to present. We did that earlier this month. This is the first time that Louisiana has been able to participate as a speaker at this conference. So it was a pretty big deal. We had states that inquired on many different levels of how we started, what did we do, how did we, partnership with some of these other agencies. And it was a big learning. You have Oregon, who doesn't really have many disasters. However, they had wildfires. They had nothing in place on how to plan for it, what they were going to do, how they were going to evacuate, how they were going to respond. They are at the bottom level, building the foundation and trying to go up. So we just tried to explain to them, it's never perfect. We learn from every event. There's always room for improvement. We talk about what went well, what didn't go so well, how we can fix it. And, to say that this is a multifaceted agency compilation, partnership. It includes DCFS, it includes the Governor's Office of Disability Affairs, and it just goes on and on. So to have those agencies reach out to us, and I'm still getting emails asking, how did you do it? Unfortunately, I was not in on that bottom level. This all kind of came together with NDAC back after Katrina. So I've only been involved for like 4 or 5 years, but I still have connections to a lot of those members that were on the founding part and still part of. And one of those is Bandy Polozoa. So I look to her for a lot of guidance coming up on trying to help these other states of like, where should they start? Where did they go? How do they start these partnerships? So that was our biggest thing this year. And then EPS getting the positions. They also have to update their policy and procedure manual because the Older Americans Act did affect some of the guidelines on how elderly protective services is to provide those services when it comes to investigating those requirements, things that are required of them. So that's something that we're also looking at of updating and revising too. There are plenty of webinars, lunch and learns going on right now to go over the changes in the Older Americans Act. So it's a lot of me trying to go back to the foundation of learning everything that the old policy procedure manual had and looking at the new regulations and the expectations of agencies and states and try to rewrite that. Our legal team is going to be assisting me on this, but it's going to be a long process. So, but we're up for the challenge. Other than that, there's not much going on except it is hurricane season. Just for, kind of want to remind everybody that GOSEP has a wonderful website, Get a Game Plan. If you're not familiar with it, please get familiar with it. Has a lot of good information on checklists of what you should have together, mostly for the elderly population. It's prescriptions, it's medical equipment, it's the chargers for the medical equipment. Those are the things that we see mostly that get left behind And sometimes it causes an issue trying to replace those, when you are trying to evacuate. But other than that, if anybody has any questions, I will gladly answer if I can.
Any questions from council members? Any public comment? Well, congratulations on your presentation and for being recognized, Ms. Crane. Good job, girl. One. Who is it?
Ms. Kosei.
And Ms. Cote.
Yes, I just had a question. Is there any assistance for extreme heat?
So Ms. Kosei, it really depends on the area that you're located. If you tell me what parish you're located in, I can give you a contact information.
Well, I'm in St. Tammany Parish. Is there like a website? Are we supposed to go to our local council for that?
So you can contact your local council on aging. Each council has different contacts depending on where they're located and depending on the vendors that can help. I know like in EBR, they do have like a fan drive every year so they can distribute fans. There's other, energy assistance programs that you can fill out, for your electric bill and so forth like that. But it is actually probably, if you have that number readily available, easier for you to contact them because they do have all those partnerships.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other public comment? Hearing none, the report requires no action and will be placed on file. The next item of business is the report of the Governor's Office of Disability Affairs. The chair recognizes Jamar Ennis for the report.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Jamar Ennis. If you haven't met me, I'll gladly get acquainted with everyone who haven't met. I do see some unfamiliar faces, so I look forward to meeting everyone. So I do want to talk about my report. I'm not going to go in detail. Please accept it as written, but I would like to also deviate from it for a little bit. We have an announcement. We have our GOTA conference that's scheduled for August 23rd of this year. It will be completely virtual. We'll have some really interesting topics spanning from education, accessibility, estate planning, trust, special need trust. So we will have a one-day conference. It will be very robust. I can assure you that. We do encourage anyone who has been a participant of the GOTA conference to attend. And we will have some future things from legislative session recaps. And we also going to have a youth component. Lillian Dejon has agreed to graciously appear and give a recap of Youth Leadership Forum, and hopefully we can create some advocacy, some energy around that to create some funding opportunities for them, at least to encourage the support and bring awareness for it. So we're very excited of the slate that we have. In the report, you can kind of just see a glimpse of the tentative slate. Again, it's not in its final form, but I promise you, we will have a great conference. Please attend if you can. Please expect to have Liam reach out to you via our newsletter. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. We can add your email address to the list if you make a request to our office. So, so we're just very excited to at least continue it, even though it's not the full 2-3 day conference that you're expecting. So that is our conference, just overview. So please be on the lookout for more details. And again, it will be virtual. So one of the main things that we are focusing on is the financial resources of not only our office, but our civil agencies and the people we deal with So for instance, LRS has always a funding conundrum. So what our office is focused on, we want to create a list so we can talk to our administration and say, look, these are funds that are being left on the table every year, that are even subject to matching federal dollars to improve services. So we want to put everybody, if we can, in winning positions to get the most money that they can get to improve services. What we're also doing is we're in the midst of applying for a DUNS account. It's very powerful for us to at least look, research, and determine what funding opportunities may be available for people who we know can do the work, who are already legislatively empowered to do the work, so on and so forth. So our office has written letters of support for individuals who have embarked on applying for grants to better serve the needs. We actually did one for your agency recently. We're happy to do it. So any agencies that would like our support, please let us know. We're happy to do it. And here's where the deviation comes from, right? So we will be doing something that we're statutorily authorized to do that this office hasn't done before. So our office is authorized to convene a committee to address accessible parking. So this group that we're building, and hopefully everyone can be a part of it, is to address the use of accessible placards, handicap plates, and I don't like using the word handicap, but that's how it's written in our statute. Say again?
I said thank you.
Oh, look, well, and that's one of the recommendations that I think this committee can really bring home. So we get a lot of complaints when it comes to accessible parking, and it's very germane to what we do because that's how we're funded via the Disability Trust Fund. 2/3 of every parking violation or any violation of accessible parking is supposed to be remitted to us via the local sheriff's department. We haven't always been getting it, right? So it does serve a substantial nexus to fund our office, to do programs, to do the other thing that I'm going to talk about after I leave this topic. So so I think this is a beautiful start to doing something that's really effective because we're going to involve the medical review board who issues these things in perpetuity to hold better and greater standards. So that's the goal. So we're still figuring out what this is going to look like, but we're definitely going to do that sometime next year, at least the start of it. The next thing that I want to kind of deviate from the report, we know that there's a lot of value for our local groups, mayors' councils, mayors' commissions, local entities centered around resolving disability issues. So we want to get together and create a summit with the local interest in mind. Anchored around the mayor's councils and any local entity that would like to build something on a local level to address or resolve disability and accessibility related concerns. So our summit and the administration loves it. So I think we're really gonna make a big deal out of it, make it one of our new anchor programs. To have everybody in one location to talk about what works, what doesn't work, and how they can get more support to do things in their own communities. So our summits, for instance, lobbies interested in coming in, doing presentations to empower local networks. So we're really excited about the potential and the concept of this program that we're going to also bring to our stable of the things that we do in GOTA. So we recently had our GACTA meeting. It was one day. We're still building our committee's structure, so that hopefully we can get all of the people who were involved with GACTA back on in some shape, form, or fashion. So we're just excited about the growth that we're continuing to figure things out. But, and just for the sake of time, I can take some questions. There's some things that you can just continue to expect from us on the newsletter. If there's anyone who wants us to participate in their events, we'll certainly be happy to do that. Proclamations, awareness campaigns, please involve us in whatever itineraries you have, especially if you want our office to participate. On that note, Madam Chair, I will close and open up the floor to any questions.
Any questions from council members? Any public? Oh, Gio.
Whoops. When did you say your conference will be?
August 23rd.
August.
So the slated time is 8:30 to 4:30. 9 to 4:30? Okay. 9 to 4:30. So that gives everybody a chance to get the coffee. We will have interpreters. If there's any accessibility requests, Liam is going to, I promise you're going to be throwing up this conference. There's so many flyers to come out over the next, starting next week. We do hope that we can have the participation that we've had in the past, so please support us. So moving forward, this is just the beginning, and we hope to have a hybrid in person and virtual next year.
It's the 23rd.
Yes, that is a Friday.
Okay.
Next month.
Perfect. Thanks, y'all.
You have two hands raised.
Who's?
It's Christy Curtis first.
Christy?
And Miss Brenda Cosette second.
Hi, thank you, Chair. So my question is about the accessible parking placards. It sounds like you said that y'all were going to get with the medical board, and so I think this is one of the issues that I'm passionate about, and what I see the most is that accessible park we need to focus on enforcing accessible parking rules. What I've noticed is that it's not being enforced, and especially in the communities I'm in the most. And so if we were enforcing it, we could get more of that, those fees from the tickets being given to go to the governor's office of disability affairs or wherever it goes to. I would hate to see some of our families and individuals not getting the accessibility because they're not getting able to get the accessible parking that they need. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, thank you for your comments, Christy. So let me give you the particular statute that that I'm referencing here that establishes our authority. It's under Title 46, Section 2584. Say it again.
Title 26?
Title 46.
Okay.
46, 2584. And what this committee would be commissioned to do is to report findings, make recommendations to Louisiana Medical Advisory Board, because look, it's an epidemic. No matter what parking lot you go to, you're going to see nothing but placards. Doctors, they give them out like candy. We're very aware that this is a growing issue. So this is what we have under our tools to in terms of activities. So I think it's more appropriate than ever to commission a committee to to have some really serious discussions on how to improve the situation. So, again, that is Title 46, 2584 is the section number.
Jamar, just to let you know, my son had double hip surgery this past Christmas, and it took an act of Congress for us to get a hang tag. Because we had to bring him to the DMV to get a mobility card,
What parish?
Iberia.
Okay.
So we did get it, and we only use it if we need to, or if it's the end of the day and he's really exhausted or that kind of thing. But it took us a while.
Yeah, some parishes have it under control more than others. Some are a little heavy-handed.
Yeah.
But we want to at least understand everyone's individual's needs in terms of parishes and just take some really strong steps to make sure that this very important tool is used appropriately.
Miss Brenda?
Good afternoon. I've had questions about thank you for the one-day virtual conference. And continuing that, even if it's for one day, we appreciate it. The applications for membership in GACTA, the advisory council, was in the June GOTA newsletter. Are you still seeking applicants, and are they only former members? And lastly, okay, and the GACTA committees, are you able to serve on the GACTA committee even if you're not a GACTA member?
Two great questions. Thank you, Brenda. Yes, we have one opening that the governor hasn't filled yet. So we want as many qualified applicants to submit applications so that they can go through the process. And yes, that is the aim, to have non-member individuals be involved with our committees. So we have accessibility, education. Why am I drawing a blank now? Liam, help me out here. Education.
And
legislative,
legislative, education, and accessibility.
Yeah, so those are the traditional committees. However, there's some needs. We could always, in the past, there's a transportation committee. So based on where we are, those could be ad hoc created, and just to serve a particular need, or they could be perpetual. But that's something that we're building. And as you know, we went from 31 to 9. And I don't care who you are, if you get a reduction in that size, you're going to have to make some changes and some adjustments. So that's where we are. Someone else has a question?
Tomorrow, I got a ticket. Mine was expired and they took mine.
Yeah, Ms. Brenda still had her hand raised.
And I was wondering, like, okay, they took mine and I had a trouble getting mine back.
Did you ever get it back?
I got it back, but they gave me the blues to just get it back because they said it was expired and what you doing with it? And I'm in a wheelchair. I'm like, can you look in the back of the car?
Look, man, you can explain it to some people, you can't make them understand it.
I'm sorry.
Sorry that happened to you.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Miss Brenda. I thought you were done. I apologize for that.
Thank you.
There's another question. Hey, hi.
Hi, she might be finished.
Hello?
Yes,
Yes,
go ahead.
how does the public participate in the GACTA meetings? And do we contact Mr. Liam to serve on the education committee? Thank you.
Yes, and yes, so there will be virtual participation. So our GAC, our committee, our council is, of course, they have to vet, doing the same thing that this council is doing, doing the Act 378 to fortify its rules and procedures for virtual meetings. So we're going through that process as well, but there will be virtual and in-person opportunities to participate. And yes, Liam is the coordinator of GACTA. I've been made a member, so So Liam has been gracious, and he's been great in this role of coordinating the council's meetings and laying the foundation for us to be successful.
Jamal, I'm working on
Oh, there you
the
go.
link in the chat for the
For the
the
conference.
board's permission.
Okay, perfect, thank you. All right.
Hi, Ms. Vivian.
So really, I just have two words to say, hidden disabilities.
Give me more.
In regards to the handicap tags, you don't know who does and does not have a disability. It's not easy to get those handicap tags. It's very difficult. So if someone has one, they probably have a disability.
Well, let me say this, we get complaints for people all the time, whether it's through exposing abuse of SSDI. We get a lot of complaints about people from individuals with inside who exploit loopholes to get things that they shouldn't have. So I guess our office is looking into it to vet what should be out of the abundance of caution. And yes, that is very true. However, there is some abuse that's out there, so we just want to make sure that it's appropriately dealt with. As our roles as in public service, and just so we can at least make sure that there's some more public confidence in doing the right things for something that's in the wrong hand can easily be abused. So I appreciate what you're saying, and what you're saying is very true. And I think that we can look into it more. So that's where we stand.
Sarah?
I know with mine, if I could get some clarity to her, that I have an ID and the ID matches to that tag. So if you basically don't show that ID, they physically could pull that ID. Like I was in a grocery store one time and my worker was parked in the handicapped parking spot. They asked her to show the ID. They actually came in the store and asked me to pull that ID. And that ID stops a lot of that, because if it don't match that ID, they will say, okay, you don't actually have that.
I usually have mine on me, but even my husband is a disabled veteran with his back. Some days he walks fine, some days not. But you should have the
Mobility.
ID, or even if it's something that can go on your actual ID, that if the cop or law enforcement, look, I have this ID, you don't have to explain anything else, because that's not their business, obviously, but it's through the DMV, through your doctor. I've got this designation. You know, if you have an issue, you don't, you know, so it won't cover all the abuse, but I think it would allow us to enforce it a lot easier. And the fact that the DMV can say, okay, you need to come get redetermined, because if you just had, you know, a knee replacement, but you did that 5 years ago and you're fine now. I know a lot of people are still using it, you know, or somebody with their grandma, you know, might have their tag using it without grandma. But if grandma has her ID, then she can keep her tag with her. So that, I know this is not in the whole work group, just little things like that. I think having, like you said, the work group would cover the things that not everybody thinks of. But the individual people who have the exceptions can say, and we can work it out, hopefully.
Yeah, finding all the loopholes, finding all the exceptions, and the creative ways for.
The best case scenario, because you're not gonna get one size fits all.
Yeah, so having individuals with interest and who know the system, who have lived and shared experiences, those are the individuals that's going to be a part of this.
It's not gonna be perfect, but we can make it better.
Yeah, that's the goal. Thank you for saying that.
One more question, y'all can't make them free folks, cause them paying $32.
Well, Eric, yeah, that's a little bit out of my pay grade, buddy.
Mike.
If the local, I don't know how you would do it on the enforcement end, because that's the problem. The local law enforcement, you're not gonna get anybody to show up and do any enforcement if somebody's parked in a spot. Now, if they did that, you could make those free for Mr. Eric here. Because you can have a spot blocked and call and they won't come. And I have these little cards that say you park like an idiot, and I use them.
Well, one thing I'll say about, our Governor Landry, he, the sheriffs tend to listen to him more than I think any other governor, so. So that's one thing, that we hope that will change, so this, I appreciate what you're saying. So certainly we intend to do something about it when it comes down to, getting information and determine what is real and what needs to change.
Oh, Jill?
I wanted to bring this to the group and I've been forgetting, but my favorite restaurant is in a shopping center. Have you? And so, and there's, I wanna say, a lone place in the shopping center, and they have 2 signs that say, like, big, like the big outside, like, advertisement plant, like, signs that say, like, and they use it for reserved parking, and like I said, it's in a big old shopping center, and my parents and I got in an argument with them because one of their big apply here signs was in the handicap spot, like, for that's designated for the whole shopping center. And I mean, we moved it, but they gave us grief. But is that, like, well in their authority? Can you reserve a handicap spot for your organization in a parking lot structure?
I don't believe that you can. And everything's governed by state law. Unless they can prove some local statute, ordinance, or everybody has a right to park if they have the appropriate placards or credentials. But we
not what I'm saying, because though I was intending a rut or going out to eat, in a bank and a big sign for advertisement blocking their handicap spot, and that was the only handicap spot in the whole parking complex. So we ignored the reserve sign in part that the bank reserved because that was the only handicap spot in the place that I could park at. So does this make sense?
Yeah, it does. And I think that this committee can, vet issues like that. So when we get it, established, I think that we can talk about those issues further, just for the sake of time. I know that there's other, work to present. So I'd be more than happy to talk about the individual situations offline. If you have additional, private or other questions or concerns.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Thank you, Jill.
Any other questions? Hearing none, the report requires no action and will be placed on file. At this time, it is time for a recess. Would y'all like a recess?
Yep.
It is now, let's see, there's no objections, the meeting will recess for 10 minutes. Okay, no objections. Hearing none, the meeting is at recess. It is now 10:47. We will reconvene at
10:47.
what is 2:47? Oh, I said 10. I'm sorry. Yeah, there you go.
West Coast.
2:47. We will reconvene at 3.
Hey, Miss P.
The next item of business is the report of Disability Rights of Louisiana. The chair recognizes Tori Roca for the report. Roca, I'm sorry.
Either way.
It's Cajun and.
It works either way, actually.
Sorry.
No problem. First, let me apologize. I noticed that, title of my report says it's from April. It is from July, actually. That's a typo on my part, that just a failure to change the date when I was writing a report and trying to reuse the same letterhead to make it easier. Any dates that you see in here that might be from the first quarter of this year, those are accurate. It's just that
Any questions from council members? Any public comments? Hearing none, the report requires no action and will be placed on file. The next item of business is the report from Families Helping Family Centers. The chair recognizes Mr. Sprinkle for the report.
Well, Mr. Sprinkle's not here today, but my name is Kristen Reed. I'm here to talk a little bit about our Helping Family Centers. Right now, I know that school is out, but this is not really a downtime for us. This is a time to get the word out about everything else. All of our centers are currently working on back to school events, things like that, but also getting, going out into the community, doing those IEP workshops, getting ready for the next school year, what's going on, promoting for Bureau of Family Health vaccinations, what's required, what to get when you go to your doctor before, what's going to be required at home, our collaboration kits with our doctors, the surveys for Bureau of Family Health. We have been coordinating with our schools to go to literacy nights, family reading, anything in the community to promote disability related so we can get the words out, services out there about ACD, about the LDOE websites, different things that are going on in our system. Also introducing what's coming up for us. You know, school starts less than a month now for almost every place, at least in our place. We're just doing what we can to help parish by parish get school uniforms, documentation, assessments, whatever is needed to get back going and stuff, as well as continuing our ongoing of getting disability services out into the community. Any questions?
Any questions from council members? Thank you so much, Mr. Field.
I do have a question that wasn't about the report,
Okay.
but it is about families having families.
Okay.
So I know there used to be a meeting or meetings, I don't know what time period, but where all the families having families groups, offices would have some kind of joint meeting. Is that still the case? No, so yeah, I need to contact each director.
Yes, sir. We used to have a umbrella that picked up of Louisiana, but that is no longer.
No longer.
It's just their individual.
So I can just reach out to Jim.
One thing to chime in, the directors of each center, they do get on a call every Monday.
Every Monday?
So if you needed to speak with them, I'm sure you could reach out to one of the directors and they could.
See, I just want to get some information about the trainings we're planning on doing instead of reaching out
Yes,
all the time.
regional,
So-
yes, each training, those trainings are
Gotcha.
regional.
If there's somehow somebody could send me the time and the number to call in on, or?
Yeah, Kristen, yeah.
I'll take care of it. I'll get it to you.
Okay, you got my.
Yes, sir, I do.
Perfect, thank you.
Any other comments?
Brenda has her hand raised.
Ms. Brenda?
Thank you for the report, FHF. Can we get the report on the website, please? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Brenda. Nicole?
Okay, so this is probably a question, maybe I'll answer it if I just step out to go to the bathroom, but I know last meeting, we were talking to the New Orleans family, Southern family, that we had took the funding back, and they're on like a probational period. Was that discussed? Or like, where are we with them with that?
That's handled in the self-determination committee.
Oh, okay.
And it was discussed in the Mike summary this morning, in his chair board.
He did discuss that part?
Yeah, he provided a recap of that conversation.
Oh.
And if you want to go and look at the update that the director provided, Nicole, it's in the self-determination agenda online. Her update is linked.
Okay.
So you
can.
Any other comments? All right, this report requires no action to be placed on file. The next item for business is the report from the Office of Citizens with Developmental Disabilities. The chair recognizes Ms. Julie Hagan for the report.
So, good afternoon, everybody. We are going to be working on updating our report for October. Well, first off, we've kind of got a book now because as the years have gone and people asked us, we sort of added things, but then didn't always take things off. We are also really, really trying hard for anything that we have that's public facing to make sure that we're using plain language and really thinking about how we're using that, and it gets really kind of complicated. So I may be reaching out to some of you directly, but if others have thoughts or ideas about this is really helpful in the report, but this is not necessarily helpful. And Jill, sorry, but I'm probably gonna be calling you directly because I know you and I talk about the report quite a bit. So I do want to make sure that I don't want to not be transparent, but I also don't want to continue having information in ways that don't make sense. And just really, we're trying to put an eye towards, is there a way we can present this in a way that's maybe a little more user-friendly, where there might be some standing agenda item things that we routinely update on, but then if there's major things for that quarter, that we have a way to highlight that, because you sort of lose it in the report in the way that it is now. So again, if folks have thoughts or suggestions around that, I'm happy to take them. We're going to shoot for the October report. It depends on how much feedback I get, but for sure we'll have that by the January report. Some of the main things we're working on, we are still under a corrective action plan for our home and community-based settings rule as it relates to our day habilitation and employment programs. We are, working on having everybody able to come into compliance with that. specifically around people not just going to a building and spending their entire day only with people with disabilities, but having more community integration as it relates to that. So we do still have some areas, the rural areas are who struggle the most with, you know, how to achieve compliance with the things that we're asking them for. So we still have some facilities that are not quite there, but we're getting closer, we think, to kind of the finish line on that. In the report, you'll see the breakdown on the American Rescue Plan Act dollars. We have gotten an extension. So all of the activities that you see, we were originally only had until March of 2025. We've now gotten an extension from CMS until December of 2025. So we have a little more time now to really focus on, we're not doing new activities, but really we can pilot some of the things we're piloting or some of the things that took us longer because we had to contract. So we were excited to see that we have that extension until December. They mentioned this morning in the self-determination and community inclusion, I did a report on the access rule. That's really got all of our attention right now in terms of thinking about how we are going to come into compliance. And so that's something you'll definitely see in my report and something I'll be using the self-determination and community inclusion for routinely to be able to get their feedback on certain aspects of that access rule. We were also awarded an Ebony and ARC of Louisiana will be working with us on this and also gonna maybe reaching out to some other people. But there's it was a technical assistance grant for helping people understand the benefits of dual enrollment in Medicaid and Medicare. We have a lot of people, we believe in Louisiana, who could benefit from being enrolled in Medicare, having more access to doctors, greater, you know, they're eligible, but you have to apply. And so we're going to be working with this technical assistance cohort to look at our policies. So we have our Medicaid team at the table along with OCDD and OAAS. We're going to be pulling in external partners, looking at our policies, what might we need to change to make sure that people are getting access to the resources that they need and knowing about it. And then what are they can help us with material development and things like that. So it's 1 year and it just started in July. So that'll go through next June. So we'll continue to keep you guys updated. I'm sure we'll have some asks to help us, you know, get information and resources out. And then our early steps program, we are having an audit from the, Meredith may have to help me, OSEP, Office of Special Education Programs. Thank you. From OSEP will be here in December, doing an audit of our early steps program. We've been getting ready for it for a while. We've been getting ready for the fact that we will probably have opportunities for improvement once that audit is finalized, but we'll be making sure to share that. One of the things that did happen during the legislative session, and Jamar had mentioned some of the positions that changed, the SICC person who coordinated our statewide interagency coordinating council for early steps was under the Governor's Office of Disability Affairs. That's been shifted to be under the Office for Citizens with Developmental Disabilities. So we don't have a person in that position yet. We'll be hiring for that position soon. And the main thing there is for them to oversee that coordinating council. And then the last thing I'll just mention, because we've gotten a lot of questions about it, it is within the American Rescue Plan Act, but we are working jointly with the Office of Aging and Adult Services and our Medicaid office to do a rate methodology study. You guys were talking about rates and direct support workers and what that means. So one of the things that we will be contracting this out, so it'll be an external group. There will be a component of stakeholder engagement with whichever provider. We've narrowed it down to a few. I think we're really close to identifying who that provider will be. We're looking for someone who's done this in other states. So they have history, know what are the relevant things that need to be included, what do we need to consider, and get us to the point, because right now when we say things like we need to pay the workers more, well, what portion? In the access rule, it says that some of the rates, 80% will have to go to the worker, but how do you figure out overhead? How do you figure out overtime payments that we know are there? What is, and so what we're hoping to do with this rate methodology is really have a clearer picture of what all of those factors are that tie into the rate. So that if we do need to go to the legislators and say, hey, $9 an hour is not enough, we think direct care workers need to pay $12 an hour, then now we have this rate methodology that tells us that this is what the rate needs to be to support 12, 13, but whatever the rate is paid, and you have a more objective way of doing that. We do, it's not that we don't have that now in OCD, but it's not done with an external group that can objectively really take a look at that. So we hope to have that done. That will again be paid for through the Rescue Plan Act dollars. And so the different agencies who applied gave us different timeframes for that. That is something I don't want to rush too fast. I'd rather take a little more time and get it done right than try to hurry it along. But we do recognize too, there's sort of ideal times that we need to have it if folks are going to go advocate to the legislature for certain things. So we're kind of looking at all that, but we hope to, by the October meeting, I should have a work plan and specific deliverables for you guys on what we're looking at doing with that rate methodology. And so I'll stop there. There's tons more in the report, but happy to take any questions.
For early steps, Julie, do you still utilize the 2 domains for children to qualify for early steps?
That's the more restrictive. We haven't changed it.
So it's still 2?
I know there was a report done that asked us to look at changing that.
Many years ago, it was just 1, but it had so many children.
And there is a fiscal note tied to that because our utilization for early steps has gone up. And so that is something that we could look at, but would need to look at it along with kind of with the fiscal impact of
So
that.
it's gonna stay the same too
For now.
Okay. So,
Yeah.
yeah, oh yeah, I'm sorry, I said.
So another question about early steps. I just want to make sure I understand the eligibility number. I get that, but does eligibility necessarily mean receive services and or what number of hours of types of service? I'm not asking for that data right now, but I wanted, is that available? So like if 100 people are eligible, been assessed, I mean, you could have 10 people getting services and maybe only getting 3 hours of speech therapy a week, a month or something. And I think that would be an important thing to understand.
We did not previously have a lot of that information. Part of the audit and part of we have a new, well, she's not new anymore. She's been here almost a whole year now, but early steps director. But they have been working specifically on what data can we pull from Gainwell to start to look more at numbers. I mean, anybody who's eligible has an IFSP. Beyond that, I mean, I can tell you that everybody else.
They're receiving services.
Yeah, right. But in terms of how much or what, we don't, I know that they've been working to be able to pull certain data, so I can find out what that is and what might be able to kind of routinely be included.
Any other questions?
I have one with more of a, I can talk to you offline about this, but start. So is that a acronym for a program that was developed somewhere else, or is that OCD?
No, it's actually the National Center for START Services, and I abbreviate it to START. I don't think that it's capitalized, but I don't think it stands, but it's National Center for START Services.
If I put that in .org or something,
You'll be
that's
able
what,
to find
because I'm very interested in that model for.
And we just had a report published from them. I don't know if I remember to share that with you guys. I'm happy to share it with the council to share so they can think out the findings of their gap analysis that they just recently.
Any other comments or questions? Any public? Hearing none, the report requires no action. Oh, I'm sorry, Lauren.
Yeah, I think, if possible, I mean, this is really helpful. Maybe some of the questions that we had earlier on the OAAS report, with the waiver issues, the waiver participant data, and some of the same questions that we had for this one. So maybe on the policies, when we look at our policies and procedures as a council, we want to just see if to help the state agency write out certain things maybe that we would request that they include.
Okay.
Not as a mandatory, but just as a helpful guide. So they don't feel like they have to make too big of a report, but just give us what we're asking for. So that's just a suggestion for the subcommittee.
Okay. Any public comment? Hearing none, the report requires no action and we placed on file. The next item of business is the report from LSU HSC, Human Development Center, Dr. Bill.
Okay, well, I would try to go really fast because it's the end of the day, and I just wanted to share some information with y'all. And rather than go into a whole lot, if you look on the first slide, the one that looks like this in the report, there's a QR code box, whatever it's called there. And that should take you to our website if you want to look at more detail about what our particular programs look like. So I'll just say that and try to minimize the amount of time I take right now. This overhead or handout or whatever will give you, I think, some fairly plain language type idea of what we at HDC primarily do, which I know is a big mystery to a lot of people. But I think this really is an attempt to kind of help people understand what we do. There are three things that we kind of are working on right now that are not really one of our goals per se, but the activities that we think are going to lead to other goals and activities that will be beneficial to families and individuals with developmental and other disabilities. First and foremost, I think Ebony already mentioned that we're very excited about re-energizing or re-engaging our Louisiana Developmental Disabilities Network, DD network. And that was a thing for the first, until shortly after Katrina, that we met every quarter, the executive directors of the three agencies, and it was really helpful to try to get more bang for our buck collectively in terms of what we can accomplish and how we approach partners and learn about new opportunities and all those great things. So I'm really, really excited that that's about to kick back into gear, hopefully in September. Second thing we have accomplished already, the bones of it is we applied for and received permission, or whatever the right word is, to start a state chapter of FASD United, Fetal Alcohol Spectrum Disorder United. And hopefully we can work with not only the DD Council, but with the whole network and those agencies that feel like they might have some potential skin in the game to try to figure out how do we recruit people into this that have had lived experiences, either as a parent, a foster parent, a adoptive parent, a brother, sister, or an individual with, for all the reasons that I mentioned in the past. So we will probably share our outreach stuff with both of our sister agencies and hopefully our cousin agency anyhow over here with OCDD, and ask that you all help us get the word out and any other kind of groups that we can think of. And then third is the Plain Language Initiative. Okay, so the two things I guess I would want to just sort of point to is in this past year at HDC, we reached, is the only word I can think of to say, 10,832 different individuals through either providing continuing education, and that's a big chunk of our work. We work a lot with, in a sort of tertiary, we train professionals to do evidence-based practices and so forth, so that they can go out and do that, right? We know that's not a great assumption to make. One that people have made for too long is that if I train you to do it, you'll go out and do it. So we've adopted a model of, or created whatever, not all by ourselves, but we strongly believe if we do training and don't go and see the follow-up and support the individuals who are ultimately going to implement that training, it's like wasted time and money, because it just rarely happens on its own. But with a little support, people try it and they get feedback, and all of a sudden, voila, they master it and they're off and running. So that's one piece. The second big piece is community training, which is the kind of training we do to anybody, whether they're a professional or a parent or a self-advocate or anybody else, and it doesn't result in any sort of a certificate or something they can use for their professional credentials. And then we do technical assistance, a good bit of that. Sometimes some of our projects are all about helping another organization or individual solve a problem, or help them write a grant, or, you know, help them implement some project, sometimes jointly with us. We do a lot of interdisciplinary training, but I don't think that's has a direct impact on the DD Council. Again, it's more about we train people for future purposes with our interdisciplinary training, like therapists and teachers and so forth. And then finally, we do a number of direct services, such as the WIPA project that you guys do, and I think Lighthouse is still doing, and we do, and whatever. That's one of our things. We do early Head Start activities. And we have a very small childcare center with about 25 kids in it. And I know we have an autism diagnostic clinic that's very low volume, but we do that for teaching purposes and so forth. I think that's probably, enough for today, but I do encourage you to go to check out the QR, or our website is, hcc.lsu.LSU. Oh, I can't say it. I'll just say, use the QR, and I'll say that if you can't say it from there. That's all I got.
So Phil, with this disciplinary preparation, would that be like, because there is such a shortage in the fields, like of visibility and professionals and things like that, and the way that the world is changing in careers. Have y'all looked into anything of taking like nurses and all that maybe be in the older that don't want to do as much physical, and developing those individuals and have the skill and experience into a new phase?
That's an awesome idea.
Especially because I know
we don't do
through the workforce, we're pumping in these young workforce, but when we get to that age, when they're middle-aged, nursing is hard on your body.
Yeah.
And I see a lot of people, and I don't know LRS if you'll do as well, that they can't physically do it anymore, but they have the skill. So maybe like teaching those people, like going into the field, this is not yet long-term, but as you develop, we're taking the same people that have roots on the ground and putting them into the leadership that way.
That is an awesome idea. We aren't currently actively kind of recruiting people with that particular intention. It's more about, if I'm going to be a speech therapist and I know that that person's going to probably be interacting with a nurse,
the population, yeah,
or a psychologist or whatever, that they get some experience together, learning together, and also how to, give up your own professional biases and understand what other professions' biases are, and just work on communication and efficiencies, thinking from the point of view of the individual or the family. Do I really need to go to 4 different appointments, or can I kind of get some of this done in a more efficient way? But I love your idea, just hadn't thought of it so soon.
Yeah.
That's, thank you for that input. Make a note. Yes, nothing else?
We have a hand raised. Yes, go ahead.
Ms. Brenda Colson.
Ms. Brenda?
Dramatic.
I'm sorry, I was typing. My question is for DHH. Can you call me back again?
She said she was typing her question and can come back to her.
Oh, okay. We can wait for you, Ms. Brenda.
My question, I think, was for DHH.
Oh, for another.
OCDD.
OCDD.
Okay.
There. And
I'm here.
They're doing wellness checks. Some of the healthcare people and the stakeholders appreciate the wellness checks, but they say that they don't know if it's really a legitimate one because it's an automated system and there's no prompt for you to ask for a human being, like press 1 for a human. And then they said it talks really, really fast, and some of the stakeholders are like adults, and it's not their parent or caregiver, and they need time to process the questions that they're being asked. And the system just goes on and on and on and on, they say. So if y'all could look into that, I didn't know if I was supposed to ask my SAC or my RAC about it, but if y'all familiar with them wellness house, can y'all get your committee to talk to the people? Thank you.
And you said it's a wellness?
Like when they call in to ask for one? Is that correct, Ms. Brenda? When you call in to ask for one, the automated system?
It's calling you.
Oh, it's calling you.
Calling
Do you know?
I don't know who they is, but I know what she's talking about though, because it does call you and it has like all of these prompts that is giving you the egg, and it's like a wellness shake, but it's going through really fast, and then she's right. Like if you go to press speak to somebody, it'll just hang up, and then you like have to start all over.
Oh, I'm trying to figure, I'm trying to figure
I
out
don't
where
know
the
where
calls are coming
but
from.
I know what she's talking about because I received the call.
What they ask you, do you need transportation? Do you need a provider? Do you need this? Do you need that kind of questions? But it's going so fast. And if you don't answer like within split seconds, it just goes to the next question or the next thing they have to say. It's an auto system. And like it just asks, let me see what they said. It just asks like, is this person? Is this your number? That could be anybody saying, yes, it's me. And then they're giving out their information once you say, yes, it's me. I would never be able to let my son just take that call. Thank you.
Yeah, Natalie or Brian, or does that sound familiar to either of you guys? That doesn't sound familiar to me, so.
No, it doesn't, but I'll ask.
Yeah, I'll ask to see if maybe any of the health plans have anything like that, but I haven't heard of anything, of any robocalls or anything of that nature.
Okay.
I do this number here, click.
Go ahead, Mr. Galvin. Any other questions or comments? All right,
I got one.
oh, we do? Oh, Mr. Eric.
I mean, this ain't got nothing. I just want to thank the committee that set this up for us and get us prepared for this. Y'all did a good job. And then I'm not sure if it's so well.
Yay.
I'm sorry about lunch today. I'm so embarrassed, but we'll do better next time with the lunch. Sorry about that.
What?
Yeah, but we still have another report.
This report requires, oh, I'm sorry, Vivian.
Not related to the report, but what are you talking about? The lunch was awesome.
Yeah, well,
Oh, okay. I thought that some people's orders weren't correct and some of you guys had to sacrifice and get things that you might not have ordered.
yeah.
So I apologize.
Last one. This report requires no action and will be placed on file. The next item for business is Melissa Van from Louisiana Rehabilitative Services.
All right, y'all, I'll go quick, because I know y'all ready to go. So I won't go over, we have lots of numbers in the report that y'all request. The only number I'll say is we're up to serving 4,525 in our pre-employment transition services program. So that number continues to increase and we're really excited about that. I'll just mention that, you know, we realized that over the last several years, we've had a lot of challenges at LRS. And so we are, internally, we have an initiative, a systems change initiative that we're calling Thrive. And that stands for Systems Change Initiative, Transforming Hardships Through Resilience, Integration, and Vocational Empowerment. It is really my intention that, you know, we're not getting additional positions at this time. We're not getting additional funds at this time. So we're trying to figure out how to be better with what we have. So, and to be more positive and for people to have a better experience when they come to LRS. So that's definitely, that's our priority right now. But just to let this council know, if we continue with the funding that we have, at some point in the future, we will have to go in order of selection, which means that we will have to have a waiting list. VR agencies go in order of selection for two reasons, because you don't have the budget and because you don't have the staff. And we are definitely have deficiencies in both. So we're trying our hardest not to have to do that. But we have to be mindful of our participants. We're currently on a corrective action plan with the federal government because we don't determine eligibility timely, and we don't put individuals in plans for employment timely. And that is a direct result of our staffing. But I say all that to say that we are making changes within the structure of LRS to try to alleviate some of those things. I talked a lot in the committee meeting yesterday about just different changes we're making. Like we're making payments at the state office now instead of at the field offices. We're doing more of the vendor initiation at the state office level instead of at the field level. So we're trying to shuffle duties as much as we can so that the individuals that work in our field offices can work more with our customers. So that's the big thing going on at LRS. So if y'all have any questions about anything in our report or anything y'all want me to discuss, I'll be happy to do.
Any questions or comments?
The duration action that y'all on with the beds, how long are they giving y'all to like correct that? Because I know y'all always had issues with the staffing.
Right, so we're actually technically on 2 corrective action plans. This last one is for what we call 60-90, which is 60 days to determine eligibility and 90 days to develop the individualized plan for employment. That is that corrective action plan we just submitted, so it's not finalized yet. But more than likely, in order for us to get off of that corrective action plan, we'll have to go through 2 consecutive quarters in compliance. So in compliance is 90%. But obviously as part of that corrective action plan, we also have to tell them what we're doing. So we are telling them about the staffing changes that we're making. And then also there's training we have to give to staff and things of that nature. So I think I answered you.
Lauren.
Could you maybe add in the report or to the report to the employment committee, whenever y'all start reporting like the different regions and the time period, average time period of eligibility and average time between eligibility and planning, and maybe planning and services delivery, so that we could see improvement If that's something you have to report anyway. Now, I know
Only-
some of it you can't capture.
The only
So if
thing
you
I,
can't capture it, then obviously get on.
the only thing I can't capture for you is the time period between, like, I can't tell you the time period somebody goes from eligibility to plan. I can tell you how
Okay.
many we have.
In that time, okay. Yeah, that's okay.
Any other questions or comments? Public comment? All right, hearing none. The report requires no action and we placed on file, right? So at this time, we will have any public comments? None? All right. Thank you for your comments, questions, and concerns. At this time, Ms. Ebony Haven will do some announcements.
So this is something that we discussed in the executive committee at the April meeting. We didn't get a chance to finish the conversation, but I did want to kind of put out there that currently the LaCan leaders are hosting their community input meetings early. I encourage all of our council members to attend those meetings. Make sure you get your input in for your 2025 legislative advocacy agenda. But we're hosting kickoff a little bit earlier with our FHF directors and our LaCan leaders in order to bring the council the 2025 advocacy agenda items that they recommend that you guys include earlier. We had a lot of discussion, a lot of opinions about the change in the advocacy agenda last time, and I want to make sure that the council is fully aware that you guys have opportunities to provide feedback, but I also want to allow opportunities for the public to provide feedback to the council as well. So we will be hosting, I guess, an ad hoc committee, a legislative advocacy agenda ad hoc committee. And I'll be looking for members for that. So if anybody's interested, please let Christy know. And or you can let me know as well, and she'll make the appointment. I think that's it. The next meeting is October 16th and 17th.
Any other further business? All right, hearing none, if there's no objection, we will adjourn the meeting. This meeting is now adjourned. See you in October, and if y'all have any questions, please feel free to email myself or Ebony as well. Thank you, everyone.